When I was first recording this video, I just intended it to be the start of the 2021 video, but then I just had a ton of things to say about seasons that I just decided, hey, why not make it its own video, because I feel like more attention needs to be diverted to this overlooming issue with seasons that I personally have, because oh my god, the more I talked about it in this video, the more angry I got and the more I wanted people to hear about this. So in my video on Jailbreak in 2020, I ended off talking about the bank truck and C4 in the winter update, but I did not cover seasons because I felt like they were a much bigger beast that affected the game from here on out. This new season system was essentially a revamp of what we had before, and kind of a revamp of the mission system that was so piss poor, but is actually useful now. But it's even hard to call this a revamp because even though it was developed on top of the level system that was there before, it was a completely different thing that was introduced into the game. So how exactly did this new season level system work? Well, you remember missions from way back when and how they were a complete fucking joke, so they just had to completely gut them out of the game when the UI revamp came out? They're back, and they're actually useful. Instead of giving you a piss poor amount of cash, these are your primary ways of gaining XP throughout the season. And when I say primary, I mean only way of getting XP. You can no longer get XP from just robbing stores and killing other players because, according to Asimo, that would make the seasons go by way faster, and to a degree that is very true. Like, if you were able to dedicate enough of your time to playing Jailbreak non-stop, you were easily able to grind out the season so fast compared to everyone else. And with these so-called contracts, that issue is completely alleviated as you can only do a set amount of contracts per day, which limits the amount of XP anyone can get. For the time, it was a very effective way on putting everyone on the same pace in the season, and overall, it was just very refreshing because we had never had anything like this before. It was just a very cool new way to get everyone to keep playing the game. However, I have a lot to say about these seasons because over time, I have been so goddamn mixed on these. So in my last video, you know how I talked about how the Molten was really the first addition that introduced a heavy FOMO factor into the game? Well, this is kind of the same thing because this is now the primary way Badimo is making players come back to the game. Now, on the surface, you might not think that this is particularly bad because the previous seasons lasted for so long that you had much more of a chance to get those rewards and vehicles, but the thing about these seasons is that they go by much quicker. I know Badimo is much better about this now, giving us like 3 months to complete a season, but back then, we only had like a month and a half to complete a season. And this was like before 2022, so the only real progression system in the game was just to obtain every vehicle you could in the game. And locking these cars behind these seasons really does not help with that because players are just going to be itching to get that grand prize, and it's just going to be such a slog to go through. Because especially back then, these contracts were fucking stupid. Like, look at some of these. You know, your favorite contracts like call the cargo plane X times, drop a helicopter into the volcano criminal base, eat a donut next to a criminal, survive 7 minutes without dying, break someone out of their handcuffs, detonate X different police with C4 without dying. It's stupid. And that's not even mentioning some of the contracts that can just be really annoying to do. I'd say it's like 50-50 between contracts that are actually kind of fun to do and others that are either annoying or just dumb. And I really don't like how these contracts have such a grip on what you can actually do in the game and have some sort of reward in the season for it. Like, especially now, this is clearly trying to ape off of the Battle Pass craze that Fortnite started. So why don't you just do it like Fortnite and give us so much more freedom on what we can actually do within the game to get a reward in the season? And I know they're better about this now, but I don't know why we had to wait so long for seasons to actually be good. Because everyone, and I mean everyone back then, felt the wane of seasons and how they were getting increasingly stale. So they just had to eventually just change the whole system for them to actually be competent. And that's not even where my problems end, because we now have a season pass that you have to buy with Robux. Before I even talk about season passes, I just want to go over why OG seasons were so accessible. It was very apparent that, especially back then, Badimo did not want to fall into the very toxic microtransaction philosophy that a lot of bad games have nowadays. You see this in how expensive money is, because Badimo wants you to play the game to actually earn your money. And even nowadays, Badimo has made an effort to reel back on the pay-to-win elements of their game passes, because games like simulators and such have become so prevalent on Roblox, and a lot of people criticize those games for having very pay-to-win and microtransaction elements to them, and it's very believable that Badimo just kind of wanted to stray away from those types of games and be a gameplay focused video game. And I do have a vague memory of Asimo saying that they made the early seasons so accessible because they wanted everyone to have a chance at getting those rewards. But these season passes completely contradict those statements entirely, because the people that are giving Badimo their money are getting an advantage by getting one more contract on each team and getting more awards because they have a season pass, which I think is just dumb. The accessibility of the early seasons worked so well, so why in the hell are you trying to change that? And the response to the criticism towards this was just that not everything can be free. What the fuck? This is a completely anti-consumer move. Why are you putting these rewards behind a paywall when you've never done anything like this before? These new seasons and the limited vehicles are just very artificial ways of getting players back into the game, when I think just making the game even better and more fun would be even more fruitful. Like, just look at a game like Murder Mystery 2. That game has a very solid gameplay style that has not changed ever since the game came out, and I have yet to meet an actual person that gives a fuck about the microtransactions in the game. And look at me, I have to make yet another comparison to Fortnite, because I feel like this is another reason why people are playing Fortnite so much. Not because the game is fun, but because they are getting a reward out of playing the game. And personally, I play Fortnite for fun. I think it is very fun to play with a bunch of friends. And that's exactly why people keep on playing Murder Mystery 2, Epic Minigames, Bloxburg, Combat Warriors, Drive World, Doge 123 Guys Plays Natural Disaster Survival, and much more, because they're just fun games. But this backwards, reward-centric gameplay philosophy just sucks in my opinion. I fucking hate things like this, because a lot of players are not gonna go, ooh, I'm gonna have so much fun with Jailbreak, I'm gonna have so much fun killing cops, robbing stores, and arresting criminals as a cop. They're going, oh my god, I have to do another contract, and I have to do this boring season bullshit. That's what people think when they're playing Jailbreak, not because the game is actually fun. And it aggravates me so much how this shitty mindset is the reason why a bunch of players are playing the game now. And Badimo has just gotten away with this scot-free. I have seen no one talk about how big of an issue this is. I mean, arguably, this is an issue that is plaguing the gaming industry nowadays, but I see Jailbreak as a game that you cannot find anywhere else. It has an incredibly strong gameplay style and gameplay loop to it, and seeing it adopt these very FOMO artificial philosophies into the game saddens me. It aggravates me to my core. You don't see people picking up games like Elden Ring or Mario Odyssey or Spider-Man 2 for the PS5 or Sonic X Shadow Generations because, oh, I have to get the reward in it because I have to, I'm obligated to, because I'm gonna miss out on it. No, people play them because they're critically acclaimed fun games. And that's what Jailbreak was initially, just a really fun game that people gravitated towards because it was just very unique and fun. And that's what Badimo wants you to think the game is now, but that could not be further from the truth because Jailbreak has become yet another microtransaction-filled money-hungry slop game run by revenue junkies that's intended for fucking babies. And if that's what Badimo wants it to be, sure, the babies can have it, but for me, I'm good. Because for me, I would much rather spend my time playing a Roblox game where the developers actually give a fuck about the product they're giving me. Like, if you're more worried about how much money your game is making rather than the quality of your game, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna give more of a shit than you're giving to your own product. I want to point some attention to some tweets I've seen that lend more credence to the fact that most Roblox developers have adopted this shitty brain-dead philosophy. This right here is a tweet that Asimo actually agreed with, which I think is just dumb. First of all, I don't really think your game needs to be hyper-realistic or not, it just needs to be fun. I think that's what the point of the tweet is. And even if you want to talk about how hyper-realistic games aren't going to be successful, look at games like Doors or Frontlines, games that are very realistic for Roblox but are successful. So this tweet is just wrong. But I do want to call attention to this reply down below, which says, and I quote, "The biggest mistake people make is making a game on Roblox and instead of making a Roblox game." First of all, what is a Roblox game? Why are you giving Roblox games a specific category rather than just video games? Are you implying that Roblox games are more or less important than video games? I really do not understand. And seeing this tweet just made me just despise the implication that somehow making something worth a damn on Roblox is somehow not a fruitful endeavor. You know, games like Devil Heart, which unfortunately has been cancelled, but from what I've played and seen, it looked very promising. The gameplay was very fun, and it looked like it had a story to tell. It was a full-on art piece, which is what games should be. Another example I want to bring up is Pilgrim, which is still being updated to this day, and is a very fun game with interesting combat and platforming. I find it to be incredibly fun, and with this diverse world and artistic ideas, yet again, it is an art piece. And this last tweet I want to bring up kind of relates to everything I've said in this video, jailbreak or not, which says, and I quote, "As someone who has owned a heavily free-to-play game, I can't agree more with this statement. Free-to-play players are extremely entitled." Jesus Christ, we can tell how miserable you are. Because you can tell from the replies he's made on people commenting on his remark that he is a developer for the money, not for the actual love of the art and creation. Because another thing he said was, why would I continue working on another game that costs more to maintain than it generates in revenue? That's just delusional. But what I think is delusional is making a career out of an industry that you clearly fucking hate. Aside from you being a total dick to your own customers, if you actually had a passion for what you do and actually liked making video games, you would not be saying any of this. I think good examples of people pursuing game development because they just love making video games are the developers of Freedom Planet, Spark the Electric Jester, and the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's himself, Scott Cawthon. I'm sure we all know the story of how Scott Cawthon made it big. He was working at Dollar General, and video game development was just kind of a side hustle for him, so he was just kind of making ends meet in terms of game development, but kept on doing it because he actually loved doing it. And right before he was gonna fully quit game development, Five Nights at Freddy's popped off, and look where we are now. It is one of the most influential horror franchises ever. And I bring up Freedom Planet and Spark because they were originally developed by people who were big Sonic fans. Probably more well known is Lake Feppard for his work on Sonic Before and After the sequel and Sonic Chrono Adventure. These are Sonic fan games that he could not earn a penny off of, but did it anyway because he just loved the Sonic games. He loved making video games. And then he went on to make the Spark franchise, which are very Sonic-influenced 3D platformers. And look where he is now, a full Spark trilogy with a fourth one coming later down the road, and XF Extreme Formula, which is a very cool looking racing game. And Freedom Planet is a whole nother beast because I'm pretty sure it's probably one of the best platformers ever made. At least that's what I've heard from other people that have played it. I've yet to play it, but I am very excited to do so. And Freedom Planet was a very Sonic-like game, and very famously, it originally started out as a Sonic fan game. Yet another example of these developers doing it for the love of the art of game development. And it is a complete contrast to what these developers are saying, oh, you can only do game development if it makes you money. Fuck that, hell no! This money-hungry philosophy is such a poison on the industry, and it just sucks how much it's spread. And yet, I find so many examples of games that completely counter this. And reeling it back to Jailbreak, I feel like limited vehicles and these seasons are really the true origin point of why Jailbreak is the way it is now. Nowadays, Badimo's ultimate mission is to just make as much money as possible from season passes and game passes and whatnot. And the real nail in the coffin for this is Asimo attempting to make game icons that maximize player clicks. You heard that right. He's making game icons that are most optimized to get people to play the game. If that isn't super wrong to you, then I don't know what to say to you, because I feel like this is the complete opposite way to go when you're making a Roblox game. I have no idea why these developers are trying to maximize player count and profit so much when they could be diverting their resources to just making the game good. It's probably not a huge issue to most of y'all, but it's something that I've noticed has mostly a direct correlation with game quality that I really wanted to bring up. My final thoughts for this video is that if you're trying to make a game or you want to pursue game development, please, for the love of God, do it for the love of the art of game development and not as a source of income, because if you're really just revenue focused and all that shit, I'm gonna be completely real, you do not belong in the games industry. Just think about if everyone in the game industry was just so dead focused on making as much money possible, we probably wouldn't be where we are right now. The gaming industry probably would have crashed in the 80s. Like, just think about if Nintendo was EA. Think about that and think about that real hard. Yeah, you're gonna have fucking nightmares. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. I've been regurgitating the same 3 points for this whole fucking video, when this video was originally about Jailbreak seasons and how they suck, which I think I've proved my point as to why they were a complete fucking mistake. God, greed is a fucking addiction.
Help me! Ah, really?
What? Seriously, are you lost or...